Let's talk about the CDC. Let's talk about the vaccine and bombshell news overnight from the CDC. We're learning Dr. Robert Redfield, the director of the CDC, had sent out a shockwave through America yesterday when we learned a letter was sent to the nation's governors with an urgent request. Get ready to distribute this vaccine. That's right. This is Robert Redfield. And he sent this letter out, and he says the normal time required to obtain these permits presents a significant barrier to the success of this urgent public health program, Redfield wrote. CDC urgently requests rapidly making preparations to implement large-scale distribution of COVID-19 vaccines in the fall of 2020. Basically saying by November 1st, we want to be fully operational for a vaccine. And he said the requirements you may be asked to waive in order to expedite vaccine distribution will not compromise the safety or integrity of the products being distributed, he added. And again, this letter actually came out on August 27th. McClatchy News Organization got their hands on it. No reason we even know about it. And said basically we want to fast track permits in your state. Get ready. Get ready. Now this is putting a huge onus on states to try to get refrigeration warehouses set up to be able to hold this vaccine because they have to be held at a certain temperature. Otherwise, they can go bad almost immediately. So there's refrigeration trucks that are having to be marshaled by the U.S. government right now to try to get vaccines out to everyone. But let's ask the broader question, is this a rush? Is this vaccine going to be even safe? Who in this audience right now is going to be the first to put up their hand and say, yeah, hey, sign me up. I'm going to take this vaccine. I can tell you, I mean, to me, it seems pretty scary. So let's go through why I think this is a little scary. Some of it seems encouraging. We've heard from some friends who've done clinical trials on this and say, some of this seems encouraging. And I'll explain two sides of this story. Okay, totally fair. You make up your own mind. There are three phases to any vaccine. Phase 1, 2, and 3. In the first phase, you basically are testing it on one person, essentially, to see if they live. Now, I've heard stories about these clinical trials where that person did not survive. And it's a pretty bad situation. So that's the first hurdle, is phase 1. Now, bear in mind, during this entire process of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you're working with the FDA for approval and data. You're submitting data to them constantly through these phases. So there's a back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, there's so much focused on this vaccine for COVID-19. So there's obviously a lot of resources, and if you can fast track anything, this would be the virus vaccine that you'd want to fast track, right? Pull out all of the red tape that you possibly can and get it through. So I appreciate that side of it, that they're trying to remove as much regulation and red tape as possible. Great. But at the risk of what? So anyway, let's go back to the phases. Phase 1 is that you test it on a person. Phase 2 is then really about the dosage amount, really dialing in the dosage that you would take. And then phase 3 is really about the efficacy of the actual drug, and is it actually able to stop COVID-19? So again, phase 1 is really testing to see if the person lives after you inject them with this. Phase 2 is really just about the dosage. Phase 3 is more widespread. Can you actually stop this virus, and what is the efficacy of this overall vaccine? Basically, right now, usually the FDA takes about 2 years with this back and forth data being sent to the FDA, back and forth with the drug makers and going back and forth and making sure that this is safe at every stage of this. Well, apparently we're already done with phase 2, it looks like, and they're trying to fast track phase 3. Now, let me give you the good sign from people who have done clinical trials before. If they're looking at this and they're saying, wow, the FDA is sort of fast tracking this, it may be because they're looking at the phase 1 and phase 2 data and they're really encouraged about it. They're like, whoa, this is great. This data is off the charts good. So we're going to fast track phase 3. And that's what might be happening. Okay. Do you believe that? That's what might be happening. The FDA is looking at this data and saying, wow, this stuff is great. So yeah, we're on board for moving this as quickly as possible, trying to get through this red tape as quickly as possible. Or number 2, they're actually rushing through this process for political reasons. Now that's the more cynical approach. So really, to me, there's only 2 choices here. Either one, the FDA is super impressed with how well these early tests have done and their data, that they're fast tracking this. Great. The other is that they're moving this quickly for political reasons. Now, the chair of the CDC was asked about that on CBS News the other night. Is there any sort of, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, looking the other way right now for political reasons to get this vaccine through to help American people? Here's what he had to say about it.
If you felt pressured to make a vaccine available before it's ready, what would you do?
I'm not going to state a future action on my heart. What I can tell you is what I'm promising the American people, what I made a promise to the folks at FDA, is that we will make that decision only on the basis of science and data. We will not make that decision on the basis of politics. That's a promise.
Would that promise go so far as to say that if you are pressured to make that kind of decision that you don't agree with, you would resign?
I think all options are on the table with respect. I hope we won't be in that position, but what I can tell you is we will be making our decision science and data.
Science and data. So you don't think, no politics involved in this at all? Okay, great. If that's the case, wonderful. But there is some concern about this because he was also asked in this interview, Stephen Hahn, that's who we were just watching, whether with the Financial Times, he did a separate interview. He said he would be open to approving the vaccine before phase 3 trials are completed. Before phase 3 trials are completed. That means the phase 3 portion is the efficacy of the vaccine. Does it actually work? Okay, great. It doesn't kill somebody because we see that in phase 1, but we don't know if it actually works. So we're going to fast track it. I'm not down with that part of it. They're way smarter people than me working on this for sure. So do they know something that we don't? Is this all above board? I hope so. David Dayen has, he's been a guest on our show, The American Prospect. He's going to be a guest here tomorrow on the show. He's been tweeting about this and covering this. He's got a big story coming out on this vaccine, and he tweeted this morning about this. And he says, look, I've got a piece coming out next week on this, but I was told by the head of the Association of Immunization Managers, a coalition of all state leaders, that, quote, we were told to be ready in October with this vaccine, which defies time unless you approve it before the trial is over. So again, if we're about to have this by November 1st, it looks like we will see a vaccine for coronavirus that's out there and being distributed among the American people before it's approved by the FDA. How do you feel about that? Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. And please make sure you download and subscribe. Get access to our morning daily newsletter just by going to morninginvest.com. It's delivered right to your inbox first thing in the morning, so you have access to the news that I think is important to you over your cup of coffee. But let me know in the comments, will you be one of the first people to take this coronavirus vaccine, or are you going to wait a little while? I'm not going to lead the witness here. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do, but please let me know in the comments below what you plan to do.